Afternoon, I guess. Dirty Paws people. So we're all trapped in our houses, and we're trying to do our best to make do with it. We're not wheeling as much, if at all. Not going outside the house except for groceries. Not really a lot we're doing, but we can cook. And so I've talked for a long time about three things that I make. One is my baked beans, which love, and lots of people have enjoyed from the Midwest Jeep thing. And I now have award-winning chili. So you probably see an image of the trophy in here. But I also talk about making cinnamon toast. My dad used to make us cinnamon toast when we were kids, and it was glorious, wonderful stuff. And eventually he passed that mantle of responsibility over to me, and I started making cinnamon toast. And I think I make pretty good cinnamon toast. It's a little different than maybe what some other people are doing. So I figured if we can't wheel, we can eat. Somebody said that us Jeep people eat well. Let's give that an opportunity.
That felt awesome.
So the ingredient list is pretty simple. Well, it's still dark. Take your favorite white bread. I don't know if my favorite necessarily, but it's the one we have, so that's what we're going to use. Just plain old white bread. If it's a little thick and cut, that's probably good, because you want to have some place to soak up the butter, which is right here. So I am a huge fan of Kerrygold, but I found this Minerva Dairy Amish butter at the grocery store, and this is sea salt butter. It is amazing, and it's big around, and we'll see why that's important here in a minute. It's absolutely delicious, every bit as good as Kerrygold. I don't know if it's any cheaper necessarily. I've made this toast with margarine, like Country Crock, when I was a kid. It'll work. It's not great. It's still tasty, but it's not as good as real butter. I've used stick butter, which again is good. Get Land O'Lakes or something. But there's reasons why having this particular log of butter is important, and we're about to see why that is. Also, you're going to need sugar, just regular old white sugar. I'm sure you got any of that you have. And cinnamon. So I am a fan of Penzeys, and Penzeys sells Vietnamese cinnamon. It is incredibly delicious. McCormick's makes, obviously there's a gazillion places you can get that stuff, but Penzeys here in St. Louis has Vietnamese cinnamon. They also have vanilla sugar, which I don't have any of right now, and that's a great combination of spices. The Vietnamese cinnamon. I don't know how quite to describe why it's better, but it is. Trust me on that. And same with the vanilla sugar that they sell. It's probably made with love. So let's start getting stuff together and start making some cinnamon toast. Okay, so you can see I've got my butter laid out here. And I remember I talked about how the size of the butter made a difference. You see I've got bread on the platter here to go into the oven. This butter, especially if you slice it right and thin from a log here, is just about exactly the right size to cover a piece of toast. And that's what you want. So I mentioned earlier using stick butter. The reason that stick butter is not quite as much fun for this is because, that one's going to break, is because the stick butter doesn't have the coverage. So you have to cut usually 4 little slices of it and put it across each of the corners of the bread. And while that works, it's not like dandy. It's not the bestest in the world, but it does work. Got that one a little short. This big butter makes a ton of difference, and as far as how you get your bread covered with butter, because that's pretty key. Ideally, what we're wanting to have happen is the butter to cover a whole lot of the bread, and then when we put the sugar and cinnamon on, it'll all congeal, not congeal, it'll make a crusty, nice, delicious mess once the toast comes out of the oven. Put just a little bit more on some of these. You don't have quite the coverage that I like. And I'm just using a big old kitchen knife because it's easier. You can use a steak knife or whatever floats your boat. I'm sure if you're Jeep people watching this, you probably got all kinds of knives. All right, so we're through with the buttering. Now we'll get to the seasoning. All right, so now we're up to the fun stuff, the sugar. So typically I just take a big old spoon and start shaking sugar on top of the bread. Usually not a big deal. I don't try to necessarily make it cover every edge that there is. I don't have a prescribed amount per piece of bread. Kind of depends just on what you like looking at. If you like your bread pretty sugary, put a lot on there. If you don't like a lot of sugar, don't put a lot on it. Pretty easy. I have never tried this with any sugar substitute like stevia or something like that. Don't know how that would work. I know some of those non-white sugar sweeteners you can cook with, but I have no idea if this would be good with those or not. So leave that as an experiment for brave people out there that might want to try doing that. But I know it works with white sugar, and it does a fine job. Again, kind of want to, my taste anyway, kind of want to make sure you get all your corners covered and make sure you got enough covering everything, because ideally it's going to make a crust on the toast as you cook, at least in theory. And once you're through with the sugar, it's time for the cinnamon. And again, it's up to flavor, how you like your stuff seasoned. I like a pretty good amount of cinnamon on the bottom, or on the top of my toast, hitting the bottom of the jar, sorry. Typically I like a pretty good amount on there. Don't like it covered edge to edge, completely brown with cinnamon, but I certainly put a reasonable amount on there. Maybe a little bit too much for some taste, but it tastes good to me. It's the way I've been doing it for 40 years, or more. So there you go. So we've got the toast ready. Now we got to stick it in the oven. All right. So as far as the oven's concerned, this is where it gets kind of funky. Most people think about toasting stuff in the oven. They get a hot oven. They stick stuff in there. It's not the way I do this. I start with a cold oven. Absolutely bone cold oven. And I put it on broil and put the toast in while the oven's coming up to heat. My thinking on this, and I can't prove this, I'm not a scientist, I'm not a culinary arts guy, but my thinking on this is that as the oven temperature rises, the butter starts to melt on the toast, starts to seep in to both the bread as well as the sugar, and makes for a better foundation for that sugar and cinnamon to sort of caramelize on top of the toast. Don't know if that's true or not. Maybe it's just wishful thinking. But regardless, either way, that's the way I do it, and it seems to turn out pretty dang good. So let's get us an oven going. All right. So like I said, put the oven on broil, make it go. I've got the light turned on inside. Put it in. Watch it close. You do not want it to burn. And the toast, the bread was, if you don't watch it, it will burn. Especially in a broiler, or broiling temperature. So a couple, 3, 4, 5 minutes, 116 right now. We'll see how long that is, but I don't think it's much more than that. And at the end of this, we should have a delicious batch of 4 pieces of incredibly tasty cinnamon toast. Great for plague days, sick days, just a weekend day when you want to treat the kids. It's awesome stuff. So we'll go away. We'll come back. 8 minutes, not 6, but it is what it is. But here's what we got. Oh, let me get another pot opener so I can lift this up and show it. So that's not going to work. Don't want to dump these on the floor, but that's what you're looking for. Notice that it's crusty on top. Notice that the bread is browned around the edges. That's some fine looking cinnamon toast. So hopefully you'll have good results like this as well. Again, not a crazy hard thing to make. Kids can make it with supervision. I used to, and man, this is just good for just snacking on. So hope this has been something that's been good for folks, something a little helpful. Like we say, we're Jeep people, we know how to eat, so time to dig in. Note the little pockets, little places where it's gotten all caramelized and made little goody things, little tasty goody things. That's what makes good cinnamon toast. So there you go. All served up, ready to eat, big old glass of milk, ready to do it. Thanks. Be safe out there.